Welcome back to Property Play. I'm your host, Elena Saradidis, and today I'm with Jonathan and Elan, and we're going to talk about some of the stories that we've kind of gone through in our professions. But Jonathan pre-warned me before this started filming that we can't talk about anything that we can't talk about on camera. So
Wait, this is a GPG show, right?
I have zero idea what that means, but we'll go with it.
As a lawyer, you see it all, you hear it all. Trust me, we've been through the gauntlet.
What's kind of like, would you say, like, do you have a worst experience ever done with a client? Do you have kind of a funny story and how it ended up? Like, what's something creative?
Like, for example, like there's so many things that come into my mind right now. You have the kind where you close a transaction, it's winter, there's snow everywhere, and then you get a call from the client in the spring when the snow melted. There's oil drums full of oil in the back shed, in the backyard. Help. Like things like that. And you're like, wow, what are the odds?
Elan?
So I have a few that come to mind. There's one that's like very vivid. It was many, many years ago. So most of my business comes from referrals, warm sources, friends, family, like people that I know very well. This was kind of an indirect referral, which is kind of strange, but the big thing is like mortgage fraud, but it was quite a sophisticated mortgage fraud. And what I mean by that is the guy had kind of like planted this long story very innocently along the way. So, I mean, very specifically, we know when I met him, he's like, yeah, we're going to review everything. And he's like, oh, just so you know, I'll be away. And, for the first 2 weeks of October, my entire company is going to California for like a big retreat and whatever. And sure enough, I'm summarizing, we got to a point in the mortgage and we're like trying to confirm income or this and that. And we can't get a hold of everyone. And he's like, oh, remember when, I told you a month or two, we're all in a retreat and no one is here. So like, it was a very systematic. And then the guy's mom called me and she called me crying that like my son's not going to have a mortgage and he's going to be homeless. So, which is called like social engineering and all of that. So it was a very layered and sophisticated. Now, the thing that where it all broke down, which is very weird, is he banked with a big bank, Bank A, and I was arranging the mortgage with Bank A. But eventually it got to the point where I submitted my documents, but they have all of his banking information and it was not consistent. So the weird thing was he built this elaborate story. All the documents were flawless, but where it didn't line up was on the back end with the lender. And it's kind of funny because it's like, in theory, if he would have gone to Bank B, they wouldn't have known. And like, maybe it would have gone through. But again, the mom crying, the fact that there were many things where he like laid out things, he planted seeds of like, this is going to happen. And, oh, we changed payroll providers and, all these things. And then, again, as you start digging in a little more and more and like you're getting less clarity and less and more runaround, eventually it was caught. But that was certainly one that was a weird one.
I once almost represented the Yorkville Swindler.
Okay.
You remember that?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. He was in inquiry off online. My office sent me the lead.
Yes.
And I guess naive at the time, didn't Google the guy. Called him up, arranged a showing, took him out for showings. He looked completely innocent. Like,
that's who we want.
Just,
He won't have a sign that says Swindler here.
well, forgive me, I was naive. I think my first year in real estate. I was in my first year, probably my first couple months. Like I was brand new. He comes in and I'm just like, okay, he's just like a little old man, wears designer everything, had an iPad with him. I'm like, okay, clearly he comes from some money. Had a full conversation with him. He had the most elaborate story. My daughters are coming back from Switzerland. I'm doing XYZ. Like it was, you wouldn't believe that this is fake because how do you make up a whole story? I don't want to live in Yorkville anymore. My daughters are going to move in there. I'm going to move closer to my work. I want to be on King Street. By the way, he was banned from Yorkville. That's why he didn't want to live in Yorkville anymore. There was articles on it afterwards.
Is he the King Street Swindler now?
I have zero idea. I dodged a bullet. Took him out to a bunch of showings. came back to the office, thought nothing of it. He said he wanted to spend more money. We upped his budget, took him out again, didn't like anything.
And these aren't $500,000.
No, this was like, we started off at the like $3,000 range. Then he's like up it to $5,000. And then he like all of a sudden upped it to like $10,000, $15,000. Now, I didn't take him out for the $10,000, $15,000 because by that point I'm sitting there being like, something's off about him. And the girl at reception at the time literally told me there's something weird about that guy. And I said, there's nothing weird about him. He's just old. That's fully what I said to her. I'm like, he's just old. There's nothing else. I Googled him in the back one day. I was in the back office. I Googled him. All of a sudden, all the articles in the world came up. Yorkville Swindler. And it was elaborate stories like he would get married to women, use their credit. He would rent out properties, pay first and last, and then never pay again. And I'm like, imagine if this was the start of my career.
Did you get a selfie with him?
No, I did not get a selfie with him. But I also didn't know what to do. So I'm like, how do I tell this man that I'm not meeting with him again to show him more expensive places? So I was preparing my first ever listing at the time. And I was in there with the videographer, and I'm like, I need to tell him I can't see him after this. And he's like, okay, Elena, you probably should do that before he shows up because he knows where you work. And I'm like, oh. So I called him and I was like, hi, I'm so sorry. I'm just new. I haven't done this before. I don't think you should work with me. That's all I said.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, he was very confused because I came off very knowledgeable. Like, I'm the queen of learning my stats. I was never going to go into a situation where I didn't know everything that I was talking about. I also helped people like he wanted to close under a corporation. At that point, I helped people lease under corporations. Like, I wasn't inexperienced in it at the moment in time that I was talking with him, but I played the I don't know anything card because I didn't want to represent him. But I did not make it into the movie. He has a whole movie out now.
Like on Netflix or YouTube?
I don't think it's on Netflix. I think it's like on like Crime or something or Crave.
Okay.
I got a wacky lawyer story. This fortunately wasn't me, but so as lawyers, we do our title search, etc. Usually we're helping people buy a property, sell a property. This was for a sale of a property. So lawyer told me about it afterwards, said, what am I supposed to do? And called me up and I said, well, what happened? You sound like really frazzled. And he says to me, okay, so this is how it went down. I go into the room. It's all signed virtually. I'm in one spot. The wife is in one spot. The husband's in one spot. So we start doing the signings. Everybody signs off all the numbers. Numbers all flow correctly. Everything's fabulous. And then we get to the point that, they have to authorize us to forward them the funds after closing. And the instructions were given to us. Here's 2 separate void checks, and we're going to deposit half into one account, half into the other. And husband pauses the appointment and says, hold on a minute here. Wait, honey, we have our joint account. We just sold. We're obviously going to buy another property. Why don't we just put the money in our joint account? And she looks at him and says, apparently, well, I think we're comfortable. We just put the money 50-50 in each of our accounts. And, it'll just be simpler for accounting. And let's talk about this after the appointment. And he looks at her dead-faced and says, are you leaving me? Are we getting a divorce? And she's like, I don't think this is the time or place to talk about this. And he starts crying his eyes out. And the lawyer's sitting there in the appointment. It's so uncomfortable. I would think this is the kind of conversation you do not have in your lawyer's office. So that does happen, apparently. So
hang on. There's an opportunity for a hypothetical question here.
Go for it.
Well, you go for it.
What are the legal rights of sending out the proceeds?
Well,
do both buyers have to agree? Do both owners have to agree?
Let's talk on general terms. We have cases where people are on par, people are not on par with each other. Right. Bottom line, we often act very often for divorce couples. Yeah. We can act for both sides. Both have to consent to us to the same lawyer.
That's what I thought.
The money is not leaving the lawyer's trust account unless one of 2 things happen. Yeah. Both sign off on where it's going, or there's a court order. Yeah. The end, and a discussion, period. So one calls up and says, I know we signed off on an agreement. I've changed my mind. It's 2 seconds before closing. You're not doing that. You're doing this. The other person says, nope, I don't agree to that. Money is not moving. Same thing in a real estate brokerage. They're holding on to the monies. And let's say there's abundance of monies from a commission and they have to give the difference. They ain't giving a penny until both sides sign off or there's a court order.
So on a kind of related note, here's a trend. It's not a trend, but it's like a trend. And I've always had this question. I don't know. It's just how I think. So when you're a lawyer, especially if you're a seasoned lawyer, especially if you work on commercial transactions, you're buying an apartment building, you're buying, you know, 5, 10, $15 million property. The bank sends the money to the lawyer, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million. Maybe there's 20 purchases happening that day. That lawyer has 3, 5, 10, $20 million. And this has happened once or twice. How are the lawyers not taking the money out and piecing out and like getting on a plane?
Well, unfortunately, that does happen.
No, but like, well,
Should we talk about iPro?
If it happens, 0.11% of the lawyers,
yeah,
it makes
but
the whole industry look
of
terrible.
course it does.
And
But the damages are like almost like irreparable. Like you're talking one loss of
Elan, I go to a jewelry store and I bring my Rolex and I ask them to service it, and then it comes back and there's a Seiko movement inside of there. The guy pulled out my Rolex movement.
yeah, but the losses are contained to 3, 5, 10, 50, 100,000. Lawyers with commercial mortgages literally could be millions, tens of millions, and more.
That's why they have this thing called prison and called fraud.
I know, but but listen, if again, the reason you said this and why I triggered this story or question is, you know, we're getting divorced, split the money. Well, then it's sitting in the lawyer's trust account. So if all this money is sitting in the lawyer's trust account, and it's like, you know what? I don't like my life. I don't like this. I don't like that. I'm going to scoop out the money and get on a plane. It'll take a day or two for all of the people to figure
It was in
this
the
out.
papers in Toronto. There was a husband. It was a husband wife.
No,
Real estate lawyer team.
No, that's why I called
and,
it a trend.
and he kept jumping in, the husband, saying she was managing the money. I had no clue. I figured she was just really good with money and we were making good money, and that's how we lived this lifestyle. And they're gonna figure that out in the court system. But fortunately, they find them eventually.
Not if they're out of country, though.
Okay, but explain to me, is there like nothing in place that protects the deposits? Like,
Well, there's some basic insurance,
and-
but again, insurance is contained and limited, and you know they're not just going to give you a $50 million check and say, "Here you go, everyone's happy."
But this is where it comes down to exactly what we've talked about in so many episodes. You're choosing, for example, to buy a new condo in a new condo building. Well, there's a big difference in buying from Tridel or a known entity versus a Mickey Mouse operation that you Google into Terry on and you see that there's a million claims. Working with the right realtor, mortgage broker, like our law firm at Corman's LP, around since 1973. There's a reason why we've been around for that long, you know? So it's very important to work with the right professional, because you go by a fly-by-night professional who offers you the moon, and they're like, oh, I'll give you the lowest rate, I'll give you the best service, and you did no real history there. Those are the ones, there's a lot of flash. Be careful about it.
Yeah. I just think that when you've got a multi-million dollar bank account, someone has a bad day and they're like, I'm piecing out.
See, this is where, so that's where we talk about law firms. For example, when we talk about what happened with the real estate brokerage, but you have a general account and you have a trust account. Trust account, and they call it a trust account because it's called trust. There's a lot of trust in there. I'm not going to borrow from my trust because I'm a little short this week and I'll just pay it back, I promise. That's where you start getting into the Ponzi schemes, and it never freaking ends. That money doesn't exist. That's the client's money. You're dealing with money.
Of course.
And that, fortunately, I believe 99.99% of law firms adhere to that. But the ones that don't, this is where you have all of a sudden complaints to the Law Society. You get reprimanded. You get your license pulled. You get lawsuits. You go to prison.
None of that matters if you're like, anyway.
Yeah.
But this is when it comes to picking who you're working with matters.
Yeah.
Matters.
Yeah.
Because we're not dealing with pennies. Like we're dealing with a lot of money. And this is money that people work very hard for. Like it's not a walk in the park to make that again.
You know, need insurance, and the lenders aren't going to just wire money. And again, if it's a larger, especially commercial mortgage, they're not going to send it to some, you know, hey, I opened up a law firm today and wire me 20 million commercial mortgage. They're not going to do it.
Do you guys know what happened with that real estate brokerage?
The real estate brokerage, of course.
Should we talk on it?
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
So real estate brokerage, this happened in Ontario, boutique offices, plural offices, but independently owned, had a lot of money missing from their trust account. I think it was almost $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did more searching. 2 million showed up, and then they were down to 8 only down. Only.
But apparently the owners were not charged in any way, shape, or form, which
Yes.
I don't get. I heard they're like not charging them.
And then
I agree with the word yet.
And we're not really doing anything about it now. All of a sudden, the public is freaking out and the profession's freaking out. Oh, now we're doing something about it.
well, like I have questions.
Okay.
I know that you guys don't know the answers necessarily, but like I do have questions. One is, how did no one catch it for that long? Because we have
I
governing,
have an easy answer to that, though.
but we have governing bodies.
No, but the governing body was aware of it, and we're talking to them, but let this slide for months.
But my question is this: when this happens, why didn't they just shut down the trust account and then be like, moving forward, it all
No one
goes
knows
to the lawyer?
No one knows the answer to
Like,
that.
that doesn't make any sense to me. My question also is like, why isn't our governing body checking more frequently? Like, I know, and like our office asks for it. Like our office manager or owner talked about it at our last event, and they were like, we ask them to come in and audit us frequently. And like, they won't come every month or every 6 months or whatever, but they come at least once a year and they check to make sure everything's perfect because we don't want any problems. So like, and it did go on for long, but how did no one think, lock the account, move the money?
I would say that for all of us, lawyer, mortgage broker, realtor, public confidence is utmost key. And this is where, when you're dealing with clients' livelihoods, their biggest purchase ever, their life savings, I don't get it either. You know, ultimately we have to. So when an office like that shutters the next day, that gives a lot of confidence eroded for the public. They're saying, wait a minute here. Now that I'm sure that a lot of people contacted our agents frequently now, and they're saying, okay, is my deposit safe? Is my closing going to happen? Is your company okay? This just makes everybody else look bad, you know? And this is where I think it's a giant wake up call, which is good, because if your broker's going and doing that to the governing body and saying, please do this, and now all of a sudden the public is standing up, the media is standing up, the government's standing up, they're basically telling the governing body, smarten up or we're going to force you to. And that's not a bad thing. No different with the builders and how the whole Tarion system was working. It was self-governing, but some issue comes up. Are deposits protected? Are you disclosing all your fees and things? Government does step in eventually. Public jumps in and people become more aware. So I think this is just a giant wake-up call. And I hope that we don't get another instance like this again in the future.
Out of now more hypothetical questions, like if I had a property and I was closing and they were the brokerage, what happens? Like, how do I close? What if there's not enough money? The money was there. Like, how do you close the property?
I've been following this pretty closely.
Okay.
I think there's two sides of it. One is deposits, which are largely insured, and then there's commissions for realtors, which is largely uninsured. And from what I've been reading, there's not clarity on. Some people are saying get your claim in right away as a realtor, and like until when the money dries up, it dries up from the insurance. And others are like, well, they might actually average it out and you might lose 20 cents on the dollar or 40 or 50 or whatever it is. So I think most depositors, most home buyers and home sellers are going to be okay. I think there will be realtors that are going to lose commission. And is it a few realtors that lose everything, or is it all the realtors that lose 10, 20%? I don't know that that's been finalized yet.
Yeah. And you know, I think about businesses that shutter and they tell their employees, oh, by the way, we've closed and there's no more paychecks and there's creditors, suppliers, and it becomes a very similar type of scenario. I remember another brokerage closing years ago, and like Elan was saying, it was the realtors that suffered the most with their commissions. And some had deals that were new construction and all sorts of money still flowing, and there was monies being held by the brokerage, and they lost out on their commissions, unfortunately. And that's unfortunately, they worked very hard, and because somebody absconded with the money, now they're not getting paid.
Like, I know this sounds bad, but I actually think that's the best case scenario. Like, I think this is, and again, I get it. I'm commission based. Like, you get paid when the deal actually happens and it closes. But for the person that's buying something, that's everything to them.
Well, there was a story of a poor builder, a fly-by-night builder, who had hired a very rookie lawyer to be their lawyer for the builder. Most builders hire Bay Street law firms or very experienced law firms that only do new construction. And so what happened was people were giving a whole bunch of deposits towards the new builds. I believe they were condos, if I'm not mistaken. And the builder pressured the lawyer saying, I'm going to sign off on this, that I'm going to be responsible for the money. So lawyer, you're going to transfer, this was the story. You're going to transfer the money from your trust account to me as the builder. And I'm going to hold on to the deposits for the homeowners. And All of a sudden, builder's gone and lawyer's gone. That's not a good look whatsoever. And this is where, again, I'm going to say you have a legitimate builder that's been building since the 1970s, 1980s. You have a law firm that's been around for years. I'm feeling a lot better about that than something with no track history.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did a little rant on social media, but, you know, if it's like bestrealtor@gmail.com, bestlawyer@gmail.com, bestmortgagebroker@gmail.com, why are you using a professional with like a Gmail address? You don't even have your own customized URL, whether it's your full name or your company name or whatever. Like that right there is a massive red flag.
I had a discussion with somebody about something simple as Facebook Marketplace. And they're saying, how do I trust somebody on Facebook Marketplace? And I said, if you're actually going to do this properly, then you're going to go and see their profile. You're going to punch them into LinkedIn and you're going to see their track history. I think we were talking about it on the
We were.
And so imagine if I'm doing that kind of due diligence on Facebook Marketplace, I'm sure as heck doing it on who I'm buying a house from.
Yeah.
And the rule of thumb is, you know, when you look at Marketplace and you know an item costs $5,000 in the store, everybody else is asking $3,000, that person's asking for $1,200 brand new with the tags, something is off. When there's a new construction condo, every single unit's $500,000 in the area and they're selling it for $320,000, they're cutting corners somewhere. Something's going to go awry. Be careful. I'm not saying that it's not legit, but do your due diligence.
It's the cliche, right? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Where I tell my clients and everything, I said, I beg of you, please make sure there's a lawyer review clause in there if it's something massive. Otherwise, generally, do not sign that contract. Send it to me within 24 hours, 48 hours max.
We're talking about pre-con though, right?
Anything. Don't sign. If you have something that you're about to enter into and you're like, I'm not sure about this, you send it to me as the lawyer. I'm your lawyer. Great. If I can do this, I will let you know. If it's, let's say, for example, it's an employment contract, I'll have the good sense to tell you, go to a good employment labor lawyer. Do not sign that contract. Because the issue is most people are contacting me. I signed something. Now get me out of this or fix it for me. And I said, can we get a time machine and turn back?
Okay, but are you doing the same thing with APSs, like agreement of purchase and sale? Someone's buying a resale condo or resale house. Like, are you asking to see the paperwork before we actually?
When I have people contact me through their realtor and they're telling me, what stage should you get involved? I said, that is up to you. If you are choosing to talk to the lawyer from the beginning, good on you. And if you want to put in a lawyer review clause, even better. The more involved we are from earlier on, the less issues you're going to have. Now, you may pay a little extra, but you're either going to save money or you'll have a better transaction. So absolutely. People should bring their lawyer in as soon as possible into the equation, if they so choose. But most people don't. They usually come, they sign. If they're working with a great realtor, hopefully some realtors know more than the lawyers very often if they've done it for enough years, like some I know. But
should we talk about a story?
Sure.
Jonathan was not the lawyer on this, but let me tell you, every once in a while, like who do you believe if something's going wrong in the transaction?
Always you believe the lawyer.
You always believe the lawyer. You're never going to believe anyone other than the lawyer.
Because his job is easier.
No, but people associate, and everyone would believe this. Like, they're always going to think on the totem pole, the real estate agent and the mortgage broker are the least knowledgeable or don't know what's happening. But the lawyer did the most amount of schooling. They must know more. It has to happen. I would say that it is 110% not the case. I don't want to say 100% of the time, but a good chunk of the time, if I don't know the lawyer and then it's their first transaction with me or something happens, you'd be surprised how many times a lawyer causes a problem that was never a problem. Like, me and Jonathan met because a lawyer messed up 3 transactions within 48 hours.
Story, that's like epic.
And I will never use that lawyer again. But after a lawyer says, what if X, Y, Z, who does the client believe? Even if they're invalid, who does the client believe? The lawyer.
Yeah.
Never use them again. You guys know who it is. But a couple months ago, I helped a client buy a property. There was 4 things registered to the property. Okay. All of the paperwork, I put that there's 4 registered: the parking, the locker, the bicycle storage, and the unit.
Wow.
4 registered on title. I get a call from my client in panic. Now, you know this, like rule number 1, if you're working with me and you're the mortgage broker or the lawyer, like call me, tell me what you think might be the issue. I'll shed some light on it or I'll do some research. And if we can't collectively come up with the actual solution, or I can tell you like, hey, it's not actually this, it's this, then we'll go to the client and come up with a solution. The client calls me freaking out. You missed something. Something was missed. It's not in the contract. I need it in the contract. Apparently there's something extra. The client didn't even know what they were referring to. I called the lawyer and I was like, you don't know me very well, but the client has chosen to work with you. Can you please explain to me what went wrong? And they started with telling me there's 4 things registered and I only see 3 things. And I go, please go to Schedule A, 3rd paragraph. And he went, oh. I was like, please don't call the client again. If you have a panic, call me first and I'll work it with you. And if I can't figure out, then I'll go to the next. But the same thing happens with me with, I had a client, they purchased a property off market. They picked a lawyer they want to use. This lawyer was actually really good. It wasn't Jonathan, but he was good. Great. He was good. So I get a call from the lawyer being like, there's an issue with the status. And I go, yeah, I already know. The building is sinking on one side. And he goes, what? And I'm like, yeah, I read the status. And he goes, okay, like, I'm going to tell them not to buy it. I'm like, no, you're not. Wait. I'm like, I already contacted property management. They told me what they've done. The problem was actually solved 3 years ago. It's still in the status, though. Here's the contact for property management. Here's their email that confirms XYZ happened and it's done. Here's everything. And the lawyer went, you read the status? And I'm like, yeah, my client just purchased a property for X amount of money. Of course I read the status. I want to know if we're going to have a problem. And if we do, I want to be able to solve it. Yeah. I wasn't just going to send it to you blindly. And he's like, I think in the history of me doing this, and he was in it for like at least 50, 60 years, like Bay Street lawyer to the T. Like I sent them some donuts afterwards. He goes, let me tell you something. My brother's a real estate agent and I would trust you more than him now. And I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, he's like, in the history of me doing this, no agent has ever told me that they've actually read the status. They've actually figured out what the problem was. They contacted property management and then they figured out that there's actually no issue and told me how to contact everyone and that there's no problem.
Yeah, that's pretty legit.
Problems happen in this industry. It's how we solve them.
Is Corman's hiring, by the way? Maybe.
Should I come?
You have a second career.
I had a real life scenario. We were selling a property, whatever it was, and buyer's lawyers up my butt. And first thing he starts with is, I come to the property and there's a broken cabinet door or whatever there is, okay? Broken with this and that. And we're like, no, it's not broken. It's chipped or whatever it is. And that's the condition it was in from the date of the offer. Nothing has changed. Well, no, it's new. They're saying it's new. It's going to be $500 to fix this, blah, blah. Not $500. Not fixing it. The end. Well, we're not closing. We're going to hold back the money and we're refusing to close. Well, it's not a title issue. So guess what? You're going to have to pay the money and you're going to have to close because that's the way it is. You go to court and you explain to a judge that you chose not to close over a couple $100. You're the one that's going to be in breach of the contract because you had to close because it's fixable by money.
Did they put in writing that it was a couple $100?
Yeah, he said that. So he goes to me, okay.
The lawyer did?
Yeah. So he says to me, no, he was asking for, let's say, $500, $600. And he says to me, you know what? Fine. You don't close and you go ahead and sue us and go tell a judge that you were refusing to close over a couple $100. I said, fair enough. Let's see where it goes. And then he calls me up further. It's 4 p.m. Your clients are still in the property. We are calling the police. The deal has closed already.
It's not until 4.
Why is it not till 4? Because by law, the seller's allowed to be in the property until
6.
6 p.m.
Do you like how we know this?
Wow, and you're not lawyers and you know this. So I went back calmly and I said, listen, Junior, I'm not going to get
100%.
mad because 100%. I am now going to help you through and advance your skills and knowledge in real estate law.
Yeah.
So number one, in the future, fixable by damages one way or the other. You are not going to not close based on that. And you are going to close whichever side you're on. And the party that's not happy about that can go sue for the damages. But we do not withhold closing for it. Number two is transactions. Sellers can be in the property in Ontario until 6 p.m. Period. Don't care. It closes at 12 p.m. Don't care. It closes at 2 p.m. And that's the way it is as well. That's the case law. Read it. He wrote back to me and said to me, "We aren't litigation lawyers, so you are probably right by the letter of the law, but still, I still think I'm right." I said, "You can think you're right, but I'm telling you what the law is." And I said, you know what? I can send you a copy of my book. It's called The Bible 3.0. It's not a real estate book, but clearly you have a lot of anger issues. You need to meditate more because you're going to do better in this profession if we all work together instead of against one another. You know what his response was? "I'll take you up on that copy of the book, and I'd be happy to meet you in person. I would love to take you for lunch. Thank you for taking the
He wants
opportunity."
to work for Jonathan now.
I don't know what he wants or doesn't want. But the thing is, at the end of the day, in all our professions, you're going to deal with people with inexperience. People are off left field. If we can find a way to kill them with kindness and bring it back to the center, let's help people grow rather than just berate them and feed into them. When somebody's fighting with you and yelling at you, they want you to yell at them back.
That's so true.
Not going to happen.
But I think the best way to handle situations like that, and I don't want to say it's like PR people tell you to handle them. It's like you don't respond right away. You take a minute, you process it, you figure out exactly what you're planning to do, and then you come back. But you're not supposed to respond instantly because that's when it doesn't go well.
I also have a policy, not my law firm policy, but for myself. I obviously get instructions on this, but when somebody's threatening, somebody's bullying, I tell them, I don't negotiate with terrorists. You're not going to make demands and threaten me with everything under the sun. We're going to come to a sensible conclusion. There's going to be give and take, but let's talk about this sensibly. Let's not berate one another. Let's not yell at one another. Because some people love that approach, and that's an old school mentality that doesn't work today anymore.
You know, it's funny, but I think the underlying thing here, which we don't really talk about, is the competence. And you talked about your Schedule A, or you talked about, you know, look at this case law. And a lot of times when we have issues, which we all do, getting it resolved is that foundation of like, no, I know what I did. The building is leaning over, but the status is all old, but I have all the current data, or all 4 deeds or titles or charges, whatever it was, is here, or this is the case law. So that is, you know, we're not talking about it, but part of it is having that knowledge, that confidence, and that competence. And that's such an underrated word, is just the competence of like doing it the right way.
I have another hypothetical.
Love it. The answer is it depends.
Staging was hiding an imperfection, or the furniture in the home was hiding something.
I know the answer.
What is the answer?
The answer is, if you're a buyer's agent, why did you not look and discover it? And was it intentionally hidden? And was it something that should have been discoverable, but you're lazy and you didn't get an inspection? Or was it something that like, it was like a super hot, dry summer, and then the first rainfall, the entire basement flooded, and then you realized that there was like painting over drywall and mold and stuff?
I get not bad lawyer. I get calls. I bought the property, and it's 5 years later. We're renovating the basement. We open up the walls. There's sloppy electrical work and plumbing work. We're sure the seller did it like that. Can we sue them? Good luck.
The answer is yes.
The answer is
You can
maybe.
Oh no, you can always sue someone.
You can always
But-
sue, but
but
is it going to
also,
go
like-
anywhere?
Is
But
that
the
kind of
other
sue?
thing is like cost and worth. Like, is it worth your time, your energy, or whatever, or is it just to fix it? So this has happened to me a few times in my career because, you know, this is volume-based business. Like the more you do, eventually you get a roadblock.
100%.
I once had someone call me and say, Elena, we didn't notice that the floors were damaged. You hit it. And I
Hit
said,
it who was calling you? The buyers?
the buyers, we were
And were-
representing the seller. And I said, what,
I love
like,
that.
where are you referring to? Where in the floors? And they said, where the fish tank was, we couldn't see the floors were damaged. On the MLS photo, I went to the MLS photo. I zoomed into under the fish tank, and you can fully see it. It was never covered. It was available to the naked eye.
Yeah.
Even the photo had it in it. So they had no leg to stand on because it was like nothing was actually hidden. It was available to you from the start. I know people get caught up when they walk into properties. They're not always looking at every imperfection. There was a portion of the floor that was damaged, but it was open.
Can
Nothing was-
I give a tip to future buyers out there to avoid these kind of scenarios? The way they as soon as the deal firms up and they come to do their inspections before closing, and they're checking every little aspect now to make sure it's
Sure.
perfect, do that before you put the offer in. Very simple. Go with them meticulously before, go through everything. And what I tell is, you don't come to the seller and tell him I want a whole bunch of stuff fixed. Calculate that into your price from the beginning. Figure what you're going to have to do to put it the way you want it. And let's call it a day. Let's make life easy.
First of all, it's good to do showings in the rain. Forget it. Like, it's good to do showings in the rain or the day after.
And nighttime. And yeah, it's good to know where the property is at.
Yeah.
Not all properties are created equally at different times of day.
No. No, but like, honestly, day of rain or day after heavy rain, that's when you actually see if there's problems.
That's my point.
Because you don't know. It could also never leak in the history of ever. Like, remember that huge flood storm that happened?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Basements that have never leaked,
My
I got
entire
called
neighborhood
for.
was flooded.
If it comes that heavy on the right angle, it all takes is one time.
Yeah, but no one could have predicted that. People had dry basements for years.
Yeah.
People had never had issues.
I had neighbors that had renovated their basements due to flood, whatever it was, 2, 3, 4, 5 years earlier, and they literally had to gut their
But these are
brand new basements.
that is such a flood that you drove down some streets and there was ankle deep water in the street.
Yeah, but you also have to remember, for people that were buying during that time, they're like, oh my God, I just bought this property. The seller must have known.
Actually, I know someone that happened to. They sold their property and then it flooded, and it's like, what do you do?
I had a couple
You must have-
sellers
yeah.
that I get the call.
Yeah.
Oh, my closing's in 2 days, and we got the flood from that storm. It's not fun, but you know what? Both of them closed.
But it's the person that owns the property at that stage that's responsible for the house. So if the seller is still owning the property, it hasn't been closing date. If it's the day before closing, 2 days before closing, seller's responsibility to fix it.
Okay,
It was in
but-
both scenarios. The people actually read their agreements, understood it's based on the seller's insurance. The seller contacted insurance, made the claim, and they made a game plan together.
And they transferred the insurance proceeds to the...
They figured out how they were going to go about it, and they came up with a holdback, and then came up with it actually getting paid by the insurance, but there were solutions in place. Now, it's a minor versus major damage. You come, and the roof has collapsed. The house is now a gut job. The buyer's going to come in and say, this is a major item. Not interested in waiting for your proceeds.
So,
bye.
So on that point, I have to ask a hypothetical question. I buy a house for $2 million and there's a hurricane or whatever it is, and the house gets leveled 2 days before closing. Can I, as the buyer, force the sale but request all the insurance proceeds? Can the seller refuse to close?
So it's actually nice to pull up the clause.
Yeah.
And
assuming it's all standard.
And I recall reading on the standard, I have to read it again.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the buyer's call of what they want to go about it. It's the buyer's call.
But can they force the seller? Because here's the thing. Imagine it's a really old, crappy house and you were buying it to either gut or renovate or whatever. If you buy it for $2 million and you're getting $1 million insurance policy, this is like the best day ever.
Okay, but what happens if you're buying a house? Welcome to another hypothetical. Property's paid off. It didn't need insurance. You don't have to buy with insurance unless you have a mortgage on it. So what happens if they owned it for like 100 years?
Well, then the buyer wouldn't close.
Seller's got a big problem in that case.
The buyer wouldn't close. But anyway, it's kind of fun to talk about. But it's like, you buy a house for $2 million, you're planning on tearing it down, it floods, whatever it is, there's a fire, huge insurance claim, and you're like, cool, I got my $2 million lot and I got $1 million.
I'm actually going to go back and read the clause now because simple, I've never encountered the hypothetical, but is the seller actually going to be potentially liable because they didn't insure the property and protect the buyer's interest? That's interesting. See, I'm thinking ahead now.
Oh, this law.
I think the thing that people also get held up on closing is what is the difference between a chattel and a fixture, and like what is technically included in the purchase and what is not included in the purchase. Do you get calls like that all the time?
All the time. And I know that thing, you put the house upside down, whatever falls down, that's a chattel, whatever else is a fixture. My bottom line on this is very, very simple. If you're a seller and you intend to not include something into this sale, pull it out of the house before you even list the property. So take the chandelier out, go put a cheap lamp from Home Depot, call it a day. Otherwise, explicitly exclude everything you intend to take out of the property. Don't think, oh, this is a chattel, I can just take it.
The hypothetical questions are
and if I'm a buyer and I'm expecting it, put everything down. I expect the TV, I expect the brackets, I expect the window coverings. Put everything under the sun down.
Are you saying that there should be clarity in a contract?
Absolutely.
Wow.
without a doubt.
Do you have more hypotheticals? You're
Oh,
like
I've
itching at your seat.
unlimited hypotheticals.
Oh my God.
TV versus the anchor that's holding the TV. What?
Well, I feel like that's supposed to leave. You're supposed to leave the anchor. You take the TV. Unless otherwise stated. Because that's in the wall.
I'd be very cautious on it, but it still matter. Is the TV hung onto the bracket, or did you screw in the bracket into the TV?
This is
Guess what? We got a problem here. Same thing people tell me, oh, the mirror is hanging like a picture, so I'm taking the pictures, I'm taking the mirror. But reasonably, anybody going into a bathroom expects the mirror.
Yeah.
So you're not taking the mirror. Fixing TVs, in most cases, it's a 5+ year-old TV. I don't even want it anyways. Leave the TV. If I'm going to sell, I'm putting in TV, bracket, channels included, so they actually have to take it. So I don't have to pull it off and pull off the bracket and fix the holes. Why would I want to do that? It costs more to do that than just to go buy a new bloody TV. So no, let's make life simple. This comes down to, and I've scolded realtors for buyers and sellers, is put it explicitly in the contract, set the expectation, so we're not coming to a point that everybody has hard feelings over a $300 item. It's ridiculous.
Any furniture items can be removed. It's furniture. If it's a couch, it's movable. If it's it's movable. If I can move it, it is movable.
I saw a cottage property where all the agreement said was, and child's included, everything inside and outside the property, all equipment, everything owned by the owner, that is staying with the cottage. And then after the deal firmed up, the seller brought forward a list of what they said was included and what was excluded. I called up their lawyer. I said, I'm going to be frank with you. The food in the fridge, the underwear in the drawer, nothing is leaving this property now because you put no exclusions, and the child just says everything inside out the property. We're keeping everything.
Well, that's because they wrote everything.
Everything is
It's
everything.
a little different.
Everything is everything.
Like I have a contract that we were negotiating last night. Like the part of the staging items, and we told them it's not included. We actually said we're swapping out the light fixtures again, and we're taking out the curtains because they're part of staging.
100%.
During the negotiation, they were like, no, we insist on it. So we had a conversation with the seller. Would you like to purchase the staging items so we can get this deal closed at this price?
For sure, and that's fine.
That's a different
But
conversation.
as long as it's
But
clear.
you can't assume something movable stays. And I think that every agent should have a blanket statement that they copy and paste into every agreement of like, here's all the nitty gritty things that are included unless like otherwise stated in the agreement. Everything is included.
Yep.
Yeah.
Done.
Any other crazy stories?
I mean, lots, but
Nothing we can say on camera.
no.
I think we have to save that for another week.
Once again, it's Elena Saradidis. I was with Jonathan and Elan today. This is Property Play. And if you like content like this, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.